All right, everybody. We're going to get started with today's session. Again, for those that were making their way in as I started talking before, my name is Dan Baker. I'm one of the assistant directors of admissions here at William Paterson. We're very excited to have you here for our Zoom session today to learn more about our criminology and criminal justice and sociology majors. We have two faculty members here to talk about each one of those specific programs and share all the great information about what you'll be studying, job opportunities, and an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have. Before we start, I'd like to address the first thing that many questions we've had in a lot of our other sessions in regard to what are plans for reopening for the fall. We hope to have a final decision on that next week on when actually classes will start and a better idea of what classes will look like in the fall, whether they're fully on campus, a more hybrid model where you may be on campus a few days a week and taking your classes online some other days, or fully online. As more information comes out from the state in terms of guidelines, we'll be developing those plans. So once we know, we're going to let you know, especially for our accepted students that are joining us today. That's really important information for you to know. So again, today we have two faculty members. Dr. Aaron from our Criminology and Criminal Justice, and Dr. Felsen from Sociology. I'm going to turn it over to them. I believe we're going to hear from Dr. Aaron first about the Criminology and Criminal Justice program. So again, feel free to put any questions you have, whether admissions related or specific to the majors, into the chat. But I'm going to turn it over to the stars of the show now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Before we get started, if you could just open up the group chat on the right side of your screen. I put a question, if you could please give your first name and the program that you're interested in. I heard from Dan before we got on that most of you are already accepted and will be attending in the fall, so we certainly welcome you. And for those who are considering attending in the spring and or the summer, hopefully what we say will be of use to you in making your determination, and that it will be a useful presentation for you. So my name is Professor Ren. I'm going to be speaking as the director of the Criminal Justice and Criminology program today. Before we get started, let me just share my screen with you. Okay, 2 seconds. Okay. So remember back when we were actually present on campus? That's what it looked like. It was quite beautiful, but we will be back, as Dan said. So the first thing that I want to speak of for my criminology and criminal justice majors is one of the key questions that is coming up, particularly now in this type of climate, which is what can I do with a degree in criminology and criminal justice? And I'm here to bring you the good tidings that this major is very much in demand in a growing and expanding field, with careers that are projected to continue to take off in the next few years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So, what types of jobs are in criminology and criminal justice? First of all, most of the students who come, I would say about 50% of our students come with the desire to be in law enforcement of some kind, typically in state law enforcement, so police, detectives. Maybe there's a particular show that led to this interest. Maybe you have family members who were in law enforcement, and so that sparked a passion in you, but that is a key profession that many of our students are interested in and which we help with. Of course, we have federal law enforcement. So the FBI, I would say about 25% of the students want to enter the FBI. Also, Drug Enforcement Administration, U.S. Marshals, Transportation and Security Administration, the TSA, Customs and Border Protection, but also degrees in criminal justice are of utility for those who want to enter other dimensions of criminal justice. For example, the correction system, so corrections officers, parole officers, probation officers. But I want to emphasize, and Professor Felsen, I know, will be speaking about this a little bit as well, that just because you major in a particular degree does not necessarily constrict your universe when it comes to graduate graduating. You don't have to stick to that narrowly defined space of police courts and corrections. Many of our graduates and graduates of criminal justice with criminal justice majors go on to a wide variety of occupations, tangentially related or otherwise. Social work is of great interest to many of our students. I just had a student who is left us to pursue a master's in social work. But also you can go into business. You can go into corporate compliance, which, for example, tries to weed out money laundering within banks, within businesses. So there's also, if you have an interest in business as well as criminal justice, there's a nice way to unite those interests. Many students come into the program saying they want to understand the minds of those who commit wrongdoing, who commit crimes. And so clinical psychology as a master's is also another option for you. Many also are interested in, well, how do I help young people who are impacted by the criminal justice system? Community services, the nonprofit sector has many jobs available, so you might want to focus on victims of harm, but also those who may have committed harm, but you want to prevent them from engaging in it in the future. So, for example, youth justice counselors and that sort of thing. And then, of course, those of you who are my Law and Order fans, quite a few, you can go on to a career in law, prosecution, criminal defense attorneys, or even corporate law. So it's almost innumerable the amount of careers that are possible with a career in with a major in criminology and criminal justice. And just to make the point, this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about the criminal justice occupational growth outlook. It still continues to be a robust area of growth in all of the fields that I mentioned. So it's not shrinking, it's only expanding. So you can see for all occupations, it was projected to be 11% growth between 2012 and 2022. And here are different types of criminal justice degree occupations that also had that type of projected growth. So we have a very healthy outlook for you upon completion of your degree. But first, of course, let us talk about that degree at William Paterson. What does it look like, especially since many of you are accepted into the program already? I'm giving you a taste of what's to come. So you will have to take university core curriculum classes plus world language courses, 6 credits in world language courses. For those of you who are interested in federal law enforcement, this is particularly useful to you, as knowing another language that is of use to those organizations can help give you the edge compared to other candidates. We are a 36 credit criminology and criminal justice major. That will be expanding for those of you who are entering. That will be expanding to 39 during your time here, because we added a required course in criminal law, which I think will be exciting and useful to all of you, even if you decide that you don't want to go in a particularly legal route, which most people don't. We have 38 other credits that are just available to you to use for double majors, which I'll talk about a little bit later, for minors. It's extremely flexible and allows you to really tailor the major to your interests. So like I had mentioned, if you're interested in rooting out fraud in banks, maybe you do business and criminal justice, a business minor. You maybe want to do computer science and criminal justice, also if you're interested in federal law enforcement. So there's lots of options that you can play with. And you're going to be working one-on-one with an advisor while you're here with us. And so we will be able to coach you, counsel you, talk with you about the options that are available to you. And then lastly, a big question that we're always asked is about internship. Many parents ask about internship, but also incoming students. This is required for us. We think it's very important for you all not to only take internship to fulfill a requirement, but to make sure that you have types of professional connections and experience in the field, so you can really make a determination if this is the right space for you. So it's 3 credits, and it comes to about 120 hours. I'll mention in a few minutes about types of internship experiences that you might have. Okay. So what will you be taking? What kind of courses can you take? So if you chose William Paterson, you probably have looked at this already, but I just want to kind of whet your appetite for what is to come. So these are just sample courses. We have many more, but I chose some that I thought might be of interest to you. So we have cybercrime, juvenile delinquency. For those of you who are particularly interested in state law enforcement, policing, criminal investigations, and criminal investigations, those are 2 separate classes. Corrections, we now have an expert in terrorism on our team teaching, so that course is up and running. White collar crime is my field of expertise, so I'm happy to be teaching that in the future. Also, a recent course that I think is particularly apropos to the times, inequality in criminal justice, victimology, forensic social psychology, and as I had mentioned, the internship class, which is required for all of our students. Okay, so during the course of these courses, what is a criminal justice degree, criminology degree? What will you be studying? So this is obviously trying to condense 4 years worth of study into 90 seconds, but just to give you a sense of what you'll be investigating. So the structure and functioning of the criminal justice system. The parts of the criminal justice system that you'll be learning about in Essentials, which is required, are police, courts, and corrections, as well as the juvenile justice system. So you'll be understanding from a descriptive perspective what these entail, also how they work together. And one of the nice things I think about our program versus the programs of other universities is that we combine criminology and criminal justice, whereas sometimes those are kept separate, but I think it's important that we're looking at them together. So the structure and function of criminal justice system, the nature of crime, so how much crime do we have as well, the extent of crime, how do we explain crime, so causes, factors, and theories. You'll have to take criminological theory. I teach that. Just a little plug. So why do people commit crime? There have been theories about why people commit crimes and commit harm, stepping back to the Middle Ages. And so we go over those in detail. And it's very important because if you think about it, if we don't understand, have a good sense of what causes crime, then how do you begin to address the problem? With crime, of course, comes consequences. So we also look at those. We talk about in victimology, especially how crime harms victims, but also broader harm that's done to the community. So financial costs, trauma, the social and emotional costs. How do we respond to crime? So prevention, how do we investigate it? Also treatment and rehabilitation. So what works in actually preventing these types of harms that are done? And then lastly, as I had mentioned, we have a brand new course ready to launch on inequality and criminal justice. So we talk about how does crime and criminal justice impact different groups and affect people differently. So we'll focus on race and ethnicity, but also social class and gender amongst other variables. So as I mentioned, 4 years worth of study, tried to give you the 90-second elevator pitch, but just to give you a sense of what is to come. Now, as I had mentioned, frequent question, I would say the number 2 question that I receive is about the internship program. As mentioned, it's required, it's 120 hours. Where can I go and what can I do in internship? I think the earlier that you begin to think about any of those questions, the better, but we do have an internship coordinator, and you'll also have to take an internship class in conjunction with your 120 hours. So that way you're debriefing, you're thinking about things in context of the academic curriculum that we have. So I just pulled some of the sites, but we actually have many, 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 many more internship sites. So I'm just going to read about 6 of them for you, so you can see it on the slide there. But Passaic County Prosecutor's Office has had our students as interns, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, the Bergen County Sheriff's Office, Bergen County Head Start, Clifton Police Department, Garden State Youth Correctional Facility, Family Intervention Services, the Juvenile Justice Commission, Jersey Battered Women's Shelter, New Jersey Reentry of Hackensack, our own police department, and the Morris County Courthouse. As mentioned, this is not an exclusive list, it's just a few of them to get you started. Also this year, starting just in time for you all who will be entering, our program is entering into a relationship with the police on William Paterson's campus to have a pre-police academy where they work with you as part of your internship program with lots of networking opportunities with a really robust curriculum, and there's a graduation ceremony and chances to gain kind of on-the-job experience with them. So that's available to all the students. You do have to apply for it, but that's to come. All right. And in conclusion, I wanted to mention that as noted before, you have a lot of flexibility with this major. So, you know, if you're going into criminal justice, but you say, oh, but I have a passion also for psychology, or I really want to explore computer forensics, that's entirely possible. You don't need to neglect one for the other. So depending on your interests and time, work with your advisors who will be assigned to you to decide this. Professor Felsen will be talking about sociology. We're in the same program, the same department, excuse me, so it's very easy to have a dual major or minor in sociology, but also psychology. Many of our students have a dual major in psychology. Legal studies, for those of you particularly who are interested in law. Business and computer science. And I also wanted to very briefly mention that we have an accelerated master's program. So even for criminal justice students, the program is in applied sociology. You can obtain a master's degree in 5 years through this program. So it's something that you'll be informed about as you progress in your studies. But if you're interested in it, and you want to talk to one of us, just let us know so we can get you plugged into that early on when you enter. Okay, so lots of opportunities await you in criminology and criminal justice. Without any further ado, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Felsen, who will talk about the sociology major.
Okay, let me see if thank you, Professor Wren. I hope everybody can hear me. You know, I'm Professor Felsen. I'm chair of the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice. My dog also may be making an appearance, but I don't have control over that. But I just want to warn people, or if not an appearance, at least a bark. Okay, let me share my screen. Everybody can see that. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to introduce you to the sociology major, and including how to decide whether to major in sociology, and a brief sketch of what the major involves. Now, first, the question I think a lot of people have is why major in sociology? Because the standard question I think just about everyone asks is, what am I going to be able to do with a degree in sociology? What jobs can I get with a degree in sociology? And the best way to answer that question is simply to consider the most common things that people do, that sociology majors end up doing. And so if we look at that here, you can see that it's quite spread out. So the most common is obviously social worker. That's not surprising. But there's also just lots and lots of other jobs I don't necessarily see a pattern here other than their jobs that tend to work with other people. But I think the bottom line is sociology majors do a lot of different types of things. It turns out, I would say, that the question of what sociology prepares you for is somewhat misleading. And to understand why, I think we need to think more about college majors broadly. So I could divide college majors into two big categories. There are applied majors like nursing, speech pathology, and or they call it communication disorders. And then there's what's called liberal arts majors that include sociology and history, philosophy. I would say a good sort of working definition of liberal arts majors for people outside the academy is majors where you immediately ask the question, what would I do with that? Because it's not something that has immediate application. It's not like nursing or music or education. And so the question is, is not what sociology prepares you for, but sociology as a liberal arts. What do liberal arts majors prepare you for? You do hear a lot of talk about what they prepare you for. I think a lot of historians will tell you what history prepares you for. Sociologists will tend to tell you what sociology prepares you for. But it really doesn't work that way. And I would submit that it works more like this. So I like to think of the world of good jobs that I think everybody's trying to get as a heavily guarded castle with high walls. And so the question is, how do you get into that castle? And degrees confer keys to the castle. So the degree gives you a key to that castle. It's a straightforward path. There are people who don't get a degree and they're able to get into the castle anyway. We know, I mean, there's famous examples of this, right? People who didn't graduate or never went to college and then they became multimillionaires. That's essentially equivalent to climbing the walls of the castle to get in. It's dangerous. Only a few people end up doing it, and you've got to be pretty lucky. You can end up crashing down. Most people would like to be able to get through the front door, and it turns out you can get through the front door. You just need a bachelor's degree. And it turns out, regardless of what you major in, if you get a bachelor's degree, you do tend to get a key to the front door of the castle. And this is the case that you look at the jobs that bachelor's degree holders get and the jobs that people without bachelor's degree holders get. There's just a vast difference. Clearly, a bachelor's degree, regardless of the major, gives you a key to that front door of the castle of the good jobs. And that's regardless of what you major in. Now, some of the kinds of specialized degrees might give you not only a key to the front door, but a key to the tower, whereas a history or sociology degree gives you a key to the front door. What's the lesson here? I would say that the lesson is, unless you're focused on a job that requires very specialized skills like nursing, you shouldn't pick your major based on what you want to do. You should pick your major based on what you're good at and what you want to do now. Because in the end, regardless of the major you choose, you'll have that key to the castle. And a lot of how well you do in life will depend on how much you like what you're doing. Because the more you like something, the more passionate you can be about it. And the less it feels like work. So I would pick your major based on what you like to do, not based on practical consideration. Assuming you're not going into one of those applied fields, getting a bachelor's degree is one of the most practical, probably the best investment in you that you can make in your life. And the choice of major is pretty secondary to that. So I think, this really, I think it really dispels a myth that people have where somebody will think, somebody's in college and they're majoring in some obscure liberal arts thing that has some long name. And they're like, what are they going to do with that? That's so impractical. And the implication is this person is going to go into debt and then be unemployed. The opposite is the case. I mean, this is a good investment regardless of what you major in. So you should major in something that will engage you and in which you can do well, and not get caught up in whether the major is practical. And sociology is no different than that. So, oops. everybody can see that because it changed on my screen. Okay, so the question is then, are you well matched to sociology? Well, the key here is, and I see a really big divide. There's some people who are really interested in big societal questions, right? Like why racial and gender inequality persists in the United States, around the world, why inequalities grown in the US yet fallen internationally, how society's changed so dramatically. Some people, these questions are really exciting, and then for other people, they don't care so much. So I think whether you're well matched to sociology has a lot to do with whether these questions interest you, whether you might listen to a podcast or read an article about them in your spare time. If you just can't imagine doing that, then sociology is probably not a good idea. If you can't imagine doing that, then sociology might work. The other thing I would say is that the beauty of sociology is that it is really broad, and that you have incredible freedom to study the aspects of society that you're interested in, whether it be inequality, the 1%, the poor, religious people, secular people, cults, all kinds of things. If you're interested in society, I should say college will likely be the last opportunity you have to study certain obscure things in depth, unless you go to grad school, which not as many people go to grad school in sociology. So sociology often allows people to deepen their keenest interest. So if you have a particular interest in some aspect of sociology, that's going to be something that you'll be able to pursue. And there are very few fields that allow people to pursue something that they might have had a passion about since they were very little, and sociology is one of them. Let me just go back here. Also, in terms of deciding whether to major in sociology, what is sociology? Well, it's sociology is technically the study of people in groups. And you can certainly figure out partly by thinking, are these questions interesting to you? Does that topic sound interesting? But I think there's really no substitute. If you're wondering what to major in, there's really no substitute for taking a class in the subject. There are many, many students, countless situations where somebody seems so fixed on a certain major. They're like, that's what I'm going to do. They've got their whole life set up. They take one class and that's it. Like 6 weeks in, they're like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. And that's because there's really no substitute in terms of learning about something for doing it. You have to do it and actually let it marinate and actually be, have late nights with it before you realize, think, is this really something I want to do, for 4 years? So, and the great thing about, a BA like at William Paterson is there's plenty of room to do that. If you're going to major in liberal arts, typically your major will only take maybe about roughly a third of your total credits. So you have plenty of time to explore, and you shouldn't just decide on a major before taking a class. And I would say taking several classes. So you might take a class sociology, class in criminal justice, class in psychology, in class in some other field you're interested in, and then you can make your decision. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about now, assuming that you have made the decision to major in sociology, what the sociology major at William Paterson entails. So we have two main tracks in our sociology. We have the general sociology concentration and then the social services concentration. So social services is for people who want to be caseworkers or social workers. They want to go into that field. Whereas the general sociology basically is everyone else. We don't have, a lot of people ask, we don't have a BA in social work. So people who want to go into social work, many of them will maybe eventually aspire to get a master's in social work. But what they should probably do as an undergrad is get a BA in sociology with a social services concentration. And that will help prepare them for not only a career in social work, but also the master's in social work. For all these concentrations, you're going to take a total of 12 courses. And a lot of the courses are going to be overlap between the concentrations. But the social services concentration includes courses that specifically geared towards social work. So there's an internship that's required, as in criminal justice, and there's also 2 introductory courses that you take very early on. All those courses, well, I wouldn't say all, but most of them, they're taught by practicing social workers. So that's where you get some of the professional socialization. And here is the general concentration in more detail. These are all the required classes in the general concentration. You have the courses, and they go in sequence, and then so basically half the courses are required, and then the other half are electives, sociology electives. And then this is the social service concentration. You can see it has what we call field work, or that's the internship. And then the introductory social work courses, as well as the additional sociology courses. And then here's a list of many of the electives. As I said earlier, sociology is very broad. That's the beauty of it. And so there's all kinds of different topics that you can study within it. And here are just some of them. And you can see there's overlap with criminology. So there are students who major in sociology, minor in criminal justice, or they even double major. It's possible to do that if you're careful to do that without taking any additional classes. More importantly, and lastly, I would say we have a faculty that is deeply committed to helping you learn, helping you succeed academically. Unlike a lot of larger universities, we also have relatively small class sizes, so students are able to receive one-on-one attention that is critical for learning. So it's not going to be, at William Paterson, you're not going to be in some massive lecture hall, COVID or not. You're not going to be in some massive class with 250, 300 people. That doesn't exist. The classes don't get bigger than 40 students, and that makes a big difference, because then that gives you much more ability to talk to your professor, get individualized feedback, and that's really what learning is all about, is individualized feedback. So that's where my presentation ends. Thank you all for being here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people have about the sociology major.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Felsen. So everybody got some great information, from both our presenters. I'm just taking a look in the chat to see. I don't see any specific questions at this time. If you do, feel free to put in any additional questions into the chat. We will be here for a few more minutes, but that does end the official and formal presentation. So again, we thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules today to join us. Dr. Felsen, Dr. Wren, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedules as well. If you feel like there's anything else you need to address with the group, please feel free to. But like I said, we'll be here for another 5 or 10 minutes to answer any additional questions, or if you're chatting one-on-one with one of our faculty members, feel free to continue to do that. But again, we thank you for coming today, and we hope you have a great day, everyone. So Dr. Felsen, a question came in. What are some of the internships for sociology?
Well, so there's so many. And really the social, so most of these are concentrated in Passaic County, Bergen County, Morris County. So these are all kinds of agencies, rehabilitation agencies, things that are associated with criminal justice. It's almost, you pick it and we have it somewhere. I mean, there's over 100 of them. And we do have an internship coordinator who, and part of her job is to forge and maintain relationships with these agencies. So if it's any kind of agency of any note in the area, in the sort of the 4 county surrounding area, we probably have had an intern there at some point in the last several years.
Great, awesome.
I saw a question from Stephen. I would like to study criminal psychology and the behavior of criminals and helping law enforcement officials. What would be the exact courses that I take, and how long would it take for me to graduate with a degree in criminal psychology? So Stephen, that's a good question. Our major is criminology and criminal justice, so we do not have a degree in criminal psychology. there are some programs that have a master's in forensic psychology, but you are not able to practice that with only a bachelor's degree. So you'd have to go on for a master's anyway if you want to do any type of clinical psych. So what I would recommend is that you are a criminal justice major. Abnormal psychology is one of the classes that we have as an option for you as an elective. And then from there, I would say you either double major in psychology or minor in psychology and go on for a master's. But in order to practice psychology, a bachelor's degree is not sufficient. So you'd have to go on. So that will take you, if you get it into accelerated programs, like we have an accelerated program in applied sociology, but not sociology. The minimum would be about 5 to 7 years. I think this is for Professor Felsen. Anyone studying sociology would be able to pursue a job in clinical social work.
Depends on what you mean by pursue. So yeah, to be a caseworker, yes, but then to be a social worker, generally you have to give a master's in social work. So you would have to then get an MA afterwards, right? So I think the typical trajectory is students get their first taste of, say, case management as an intern, and that usually in the last year there at William Paterson. Then they might get a job in that agency or a related one, and then at some point they go back for their master's degree. Usually that's what happens. Also, to answer the other question about internships more specifically, just to give you some sense, some of the agencies people have worked at, there's something called New Jersey Reentry in Paterson. Students do case management there. Heart of Hannah Women's Center is another one. The Family Support Organization of Passaic County, Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Newark, and it goes on and on. These are the social work internship agencies. And I think the most common thing, the way it's described, is case management. That's the thing that people do most often in the internships.
Another question I see, do we get to actually experience the criminal justice program, take action, or is it all about taking notes and listening to our teachers talk? So by experience, I'm assuming that this means in the institutions of criminal justice like police, courts, and corrections. Is that correct? Maybe you could explain a little bit more what you mean by experience it. But as I mentioned, the internship program is in institutions and organizations that are directly related to criminal justice, or are nonprofits that deal directly with kind of remedying the harms caused by both crime and the criminal justice system. Outside of the internship program, some courses are a little bit more like hands-on or applied than others. So for example, criminal investigations, I know they're a little bit more hands-on. But as far as actually getting involved in criminal justice system, I mean, that is something that you would need to be a part of the police, courts, and corrections to do. There are various opportunities to get involved outside of the lecture hall. So for example, we have a criminal justice club that, for example, is conducting prison visits from our students there, so you can get more of a direct experience of what you're going to be studying in that way. But if you meant something else, if you could just clarify a little bit more.
And then I'll take the next question. I know the next student had 2 questions. I'll address the first question, and then I'll let Dr. Arendt take the second question. In terms of knowing a little bit more about the dorms, typically how our dorms, how the residence halls are set up, 8 out of the 10 buildings are set up suite style. And in terms of the suite style, what that means is There's 2 double bedrooms and then a bathroom connecting them. So it would be 4 people sharing a suite. With the different social distancing guidelines that will come across for fall 2020, chances are the occupancy level in many of these residence halls is going to change. So instead of 4 people sharing a suite, it's probably going to be 2 people, and people may have their own bedrooms depending on what the social distancing guidelines are. As students make their way up into junior and senior year, we do have 2 apartment buildings on campus. So at that point, it's 4 people sharing an apartment. You get a living room, a kitchen area, a little bit more living space as well. Our newest residence hall just opened up last year, called Skyline Hall. Named Skyline Hall because you can see the New York skyline from some of the top floors. That's another one that is set up suite style. So, but there will be some changes in terms of how the residence halls will operate and how many people will be in each room, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we will be following social distancing guidelines. If you have specific questions, we recommend reaching out to our Res Life department. What I will do is I will put their email address into the chat. So if you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to them. Okay, so, and then I'll let Dr. Wren talk a little bit about the police academy.
There was do I have to apply in advance to be a member of the police academy? So this is actually, just to be very, very clear, not the police academy. It's the pre-police academy at William Paterson. And so, yes, you have to apply once you get up to 90 credits, and you want to use the pre-police academy as your internship. So that will be a 120-hour program that's run in conjunction with the police on William Paterson's campus. It includes an orientation, you get a uniform, you have about 13, 14 weeks of a curriculum that's designed by them in conjunction with us. Then you have a ceremony. But yes, you do have to apply, and there's a very nominal fee of $40 just for the uniform. So once you hit 90 credits, then you'll be able to apply.
The other thing related to the internship question, I guess also related to the applied question, so in their internships, I think the most common activity that CJ interns do is shadowing police officers, and they're doing that most frequently at actually the William Paterson University Police Department, in the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office, and Superior Court. There's plenty of other things that they do, but that's probably the most common thing that they do.
Great, awesome.
We had a question about someone missed the CCJ presentation because it went first. So this is being recorded, but also I'm going to put my contact information. My name is Professor Wren in the chat box. If you are currently going to be coming in the fall and you have questions for me, or if you are considering William Paterson and you have questions for me, we can arrange a Zoom. We can talk by email, whatever is easiest for you. Please feel free to contact me, and I'll answer all of your lingering questions.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yes, and we will. We have recorded today's session. Once it's downloaded on my computer, I will get it up onto our YouTube page. And Ruth, I can send you the link at that time, and it'll be the first portion of the presentation. All right, so this is great. Some great Q&A. We'll be here maybe 5 more minutes to answer any additional questions. Again, thank you for attending today's session. We hope you got some great information, got all your questions answered. But again, we'll be around a couple more minutes if you have any additional questions, for myself or, for the faculty members. So again, thank you again to everybody for coming tonight.
We should probably